Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex global research, stack up the sources, and give you the integrated reading you need to get straight to the essential insights.
And today, we are definitely diving deep. We're wading into one of the really big debates in global corporate governance right now.
Which is?
The push for more women in corporate leadership, specifically on boards of directors.
Right, and we're not just talking about a gentle nudge here. This has huge political, economic momentum worldwide.
Absolutely. You've got the EU agreeing on laws aiming for up to 40% female representation. Norway actually mandated that level years back.
And the core idea, the hypothesis everyone seems to talk about, is that this board gender diversity, let's call it BGD, isn't just the right thing to do ethically.
No, the claim is it's fundamental for boosting financial performance. It's the whole business case for diversity.
Makes intuitive sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
More perspectives, better decisions. Maybe.
You'd think so. But here's the giant contradiction we hit immediately in the research. Decades of studies, systematic reviews, meta-analyses, and the results are all over the place. Completely inconsistent.
How inconsistent?
Wildly. Some studies find BGD helps the bottom line, others say it actually hurts it, and frankly, a lot find. Well, basically nothing statistically significant. No real difference.
Wow, okay. That is a huge contradiction. So let's unpack this. Our mission today is to dig into the research from the last couple of decades and figure out why the evidence is so messy.
We need to look at regulations, the theories behind it all, the context.
Yeah, and try to give you a clear, integrated picture of what's actually going on here.
Okay, so where do we start with this?
Chaos.
Let's start with the chaos itself. The three main types of findings researchers keep getting when they link BGD, that's the percentage of women on boards, to how well a company performs.
Right. You've basically got the positive findings, the negative ones, and the ones that say there's no link at all, the null results.
Okay, the positive stream first. This is the one you hear about most, right? Yeah, this is the business case argument. It says diverse boards, they make more careful, balanced decisions. Women directors are often seen as maybe more risk-averse, more ethical.
So the idea is they improve how the board monitors management.
Exactly. Better monitoring, potentially less waste or overreach by executives, what researchers call agency costs, and maybe stronger ties with stakeholders, society, that kind of thing.
Okay, makes sense. Then what about the arguments for a negative impact? That seems counterintuitive.
Well, the negative arguments often focus on the boardroom dynamics. Sometimes diversity can lead to more interpersonal conflict, maybe cliques forming.
Which could slow things down.
Potentially, yeah. Slower decision-making, especially in really fast-moving industries or markets. And critically, a lot of the negative results pop up when diversity is forced through quotas.
The quota issue. We'll definitely get back to that. Is the concern there about competence?
That's often the argument, that quotas might force companies to appoint women who maybe don't have the same level of experience as the men they replace just to meet the target.
Okay, and the third stream? The null findings. No connection at all.
Right, and the big explanation here is often about reverse causality. It flips the whole thing on its head.
Memes.
Meaning, instead of diversity causing better performance, it might be that companies that are already doing well, they have the resources, the reputation, maybe more progressive leadership.
They're just more likely to attract and appoint women directors in the first place.
Exactly. So the diversity is correlated with success, but it didn't cause the success. The company was already successful, and that's why it's diverse. Correlation, not causation.
Got it. Okay, so we had these huge studies, meta-analyses, trying to average out all these conflicting results. What did they find overall? There was one by Post and Byron in 2015, looked at 140 studies.
Yeah, that was a big one. They found a positive link, small but statistically significant, between BGD and accounting returns.
Accounting returns. So it's like ROA, ROE, backward-looking stuff.
Exactly, historical performance. But and this is really important, they found no significant relationship at all with market performance.
Market performance like Tobin's Q, the forward-looking measure.
Correct. So positive link to the past, no link to the future market valuation.
And you said even that positive link to accounting returns was small.
Tiny. The correlation coefficient was about 0.047. Statistically, it showed up because the sample was huge, but practically,
a correlation of 0.047, that's barely there.
It's negligible. This is probably the most profound finding from all that direct link research. We've spent ages debating this business case.
And the actual direct measurable impact on profit, even when you can detect it statistically, is Well, almost nothing.
It's like finding a quarter on the sidewalk versus fundamentally changing the company's financial trajectory. It just doesn't move the needle much on its own.
Wait, so if the direct relationship is basically negligible, that kills the simple business case argument, doesn't it? Add women, make money.
Yeah.
That's just not what the overall data shows.
Pretty much, yeah. When you aggregate everything, that simple link isn't strongly supported.
Which tells us the real story has to be somewhere else. It's got to be about the context, the when diversity matters, the how it's implemented.
Absolutely. The direct link is weak. So to figure out when it might actually work, or why it might even backfire, we need to look at situations where the change was sudden and required.
Which brings us squarely to the quota question. You mentioned this earlier. Mandatory quotas forcing companies to add women. That's like a huge real-world experiment, right?
Exactly. A natural experiment. You can compare companies before the law and after.
And Norway is the classic example. First country to mandate quotas, 40% female representation by 2008. What did the studies find there?
Well, a systematic review looking specifically at quota studies found that in Norway's case, the results were predominantly negative.
Negative. On what measures?
On both accounting measures like ROA and market measures like Tobin's Q.
Wow. That's really controversial. Are they saying forcing diversity hurt the companies?
Some of the studies made exactly that argument. One, quite dramatically, reported that forcing a 10% increase in women on boards led to a huge 12.4% drop in Tobin's Q.
12.4%. That's massive. What was the reasoning?
The interpretation was a significant loss of shareholder value because the quota acted as such a strict constraint on who companies could appoint.
So it forced them to replace experienced male directors.
With younger, potentially less experienced female directors very quickly to meet that legal deadline. The argument was about a decline in the overall competence or experience level of the board, at least initially.
So, okay, maybe the issue wasn't diversity itself, but the speed and mandate. The trade-off between hitting the number and finding the best fit.
That seems to be the implication. It's an external shock forcing change, perhaps faster than the available pool of qualified candidates could support, especially in certain industries or for smaller firms.
Did other countries see the same negative impact when they introduced quotas?
It was actually a mixed bag elsewhere in Europe. France and Spain, yeah, some studies found negative effects, similar to Norway. But Italy was interesting. Some studies there actually showed an increase in performance measures like ROA and Tobin's Q after quotas, especially in family-owned businesses.
Huh. Why the difference? If Norway went negative, why might Italy have gone positive?
That points straight back to context, which we need to get into.
Yeah.
But just looking at the overall tally from that review of quota studies,
What was the final score?
the majority were negative. The review counted 11 studies showing negative effects, compared to only 5 showing positive effects, and 4 finding no effect.
So the takeaway on quotas is, proceed with caution. Implementing them too fast seems to exacerbate the negative effects, especially if it sidelines experienced directors.
That seems fair. Factors like company size, how quickly they had to comply, national culture, they all moderate the impact.
Okay, so if the direct link is weak, and simple quotas can even backfire, we need a better framework. What explains when and why BGD might work or not work?
Right. We have to move past that simple A to B link and look at the theories researchers use and the moderating factors, the context.
What are the main theories driving the research here?
3 main ones kept popping up. The most dominant, by far, is agency theory.
Agency theory. That's about the conflict between owners, the shareholders, and the managers running the company, right?
Exactly. And proponents of BGD use it to argue that more diverse boards, particularly with more independent female directors, are better monitors. They keep a closer eye on management.
Reducing the risk of managers acting in their own interest instead of the shareholders. Reducing those agency costs.
Precisely. Better oversight, more independence. That's the argument from agency theory for why diversity should be positive.
But couldn't agency theory also explain negative effects? Like if the board becomes too focused on monitoring?
It could. Over-monitoring can slip into micromanagement, slowing down decisions, maybe making management too risk-averse. So agency theory can cut both ways.
Okay, what's the second main theory?
Resource dependence theory. This one's less about conflict and more about what directors bring to the company.
Like skills, connections.
Exactly. It suggests female directors provide valuable resources, expert advice, maybe different networks, access to new markets or customer insights, enhanced company reputation or legitimacy. They broaden the board's pool of knowledge and connections.
Okay, so resource dependence points towards a positive impact. But if women bring all these resources, Why is the overall measured effect still so small in those meta-analyses?
That's where the third theory becomes really important. Critical mass theory. This might be key to understanding the inconsistencies.
Critical mass, meaning you need enough women on the board for them to actually have an impact.
Precisely. It argues strongly against tokenism, just having one or two women. The theory suggests that women directors often can't really influence board decisions or culture effectively until they reach a certain threshold.
And is there a number associated with that threshold?
It's often cited as needing 3 or more women, or around 30% of the board.
So below that level, say just one woman.
Yeah.
The effect might be 0 or even negative.
That's the idea. Below critical mass, women might be isolated, stereotyped, maybe subgroups form, there's distrust. They might just not have the collective voice or influence. Their potential resources aren't effectively utilized.
But above that 30% threshold,
Then, the theory predicts, their influence becomes substantial, collaboration improves, and you start seeing those potential positive impacts on decision-making and performance. It suggests a nonlinear effect.
okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's not just if women are present, but how many. Now, beyond the board's internal dynamics, what about the external environment, culture, laws?
Huge factors. That Post and Byron meta-analysis we mentioned earlier specifically looked at context. They found 2 major external moderators. First, shareholder protection.
Meaning how well the country's laws protect investors.
Exactly. They found the positive effect of BGD, especially on that monitoring function linked to accounting returns, was much stronger in countries with strong shareholder protections. Think US, UK.
And weaker where protections are weak,
Right.
like China or Spain in their examples.
Right. It suggests that in a robust legal system, diversity can better fulfill that oversight role agency theory talks about. Where the system is weak, adding diversity doesn't help as much with monitoring.
Makes sense. And the second big contextual factor,
Gender parity in the country overall.
so how equal the society is in general.
Yes. They found BGD was more positively linked to market performance. Tobin's Q in countries with greater gender parity. Think Nordic countries, for instance.
And less so in countries with low gender parity, like Pakistan or Kuwait in their study.
Much less so, or even negatively related. The logic is where society already accepts and empowers women in leadership, their presence on a board is seen as legitimate and valuable. They can fully leverage their resources. In less equal societies, they might face more barriers, even within the board.
Okay, so putting this all together, what's the main takeaway for someone listening? The relationship between board diversity and performance is, well, it's complicated.
It's definitely complex. It seems to be nonlinear. That critical mass idea is important. And it's highly dependent on context. The legal system, the national culture, how the diversity was achieved.
So there's absolutely no simple universal business case.
Not one that holds up consistently across all situations, no. The data just doesn't support a simple, direct, positive link everywhere.
We also need to acknowledge some gaps in the research itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. Methodological issues abound. A lot of studies use older data or only look at a short period after a change. We desperately need more long-term research tracking companies for years, even decades, after diversity changes.
And the focus seems very geographically skewed.
Hugely. It's dominated by Europe, largely because of the quota experiments there, and North America to some extent.
Vast regions are understudied.
Severely. The Arab region, most of Africa, large parts of Asia, these are massive gaps. And in these places, very different cultural or religious views on gender roles could totally change the dynamic and the outcomes. That's crucial future research.
It also sounds like maybe we've been looking at diversity in isolation too much.
That's a key point from the more recent thinking, this complexity perspective.
Yeah.
It suggests BGD probably doesn't impact performance on its own, but only in combination with other factors.
Like what?
Like the board's overall structure, is the CEO also the chair? What's the human capital, the skills of the other directors? How effective are specific committees, like the audit committee? Diversity might only matter when these other governance pieces are also strong.
And historically, studies focus mostly on big company traits, like size or debt levels.
Right. We need to look much more closely at the directors themselves. What are the personal characteristics of the women being appointed?
Their education, experience, nationality, age.
Exactly. Who are they? What specific skills and background do they bring? Just knowing the percentage of women isn't enough. We need to understand the quality and fit of the appointments.
So the final picture is, the ethical case for diversity, for fairness, seems strong and clear. But the direct business case, it's murky, highly conditional.
Very conditional. on the organization, the regulations, the culture. The path from having a diversity policy to actually seeing better financial numbers is definitely not straight and maybe not even guaranteed.
Which leads to a really important final thought, doesn't it? Given that the research suggests BGD is often neutral, sometimes positive in the right context, and the ethical arguments are strong.
Maybe the whole debate needs to shift. Instead of arguing if we should have gender diversity, maybe policy and future research should focus entirely on how.
How to do it right.
Yes. How do we design policies, including quotas if they're used, to ensure that women appointed have the necessary skills and qualifications? How do we maximize the potential value they bring and avoid those pitfalls of tokenism or perceived drops in competence that seem to plague some of the early quota experiences?
Because the fact that some studies found negative impacts linked specifically to rapid mandatory inclusion.
It really suggests the core conflict might not be with diversity itself, but with that forced trade-off between speed, compliance, and ensuring quality recruitment.
So the next challenge is figuring out how to implement diversity policies, potentially even quotas, in a way that genuinely boosts board capability, ensuring competence and compliance go hand in hand, rather than being seen as opposing forces.
Exactly. That seems to be where the evidence points us now.